Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for clicking. It means a lot. You guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. And this was a crazy episode with tons of twists and turns. We saw the biggest player of the season taken out in this episode in OMAR. Gigantic episode. Let's just get right into it. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff because it's free, it's easy, and it really helps the channel out as well. So we open this episode up on Lindsay being ecstatic about how the previous tribal went, where one, Drea went home, so now Lindsay's amulet is a full-blown idol, and two, on top of that, Lindsay won her game of chance and therefore was safe last tribal. And so at this point, her amulet, which now is a full-blown idol, has to be played at the next vote, and therefore she's guaranteed final 5, since right now we're at the final 6. And so she's just ecstatic, she's smiling, she's super duper happy. We then cut to OMAR, who tells us that his plan from the previous episode worked perfectly and he feels like he's in complete control over the game. We see him give back the idol to Mike, so now OMAR does not have an idol and Mike does have his idol. After giving the idol back to Mike, OMAR tells us that his main objective is to try and split Mike and Jonathan up so that after they're split up and they gun for each other, he can pick a side. Whichever side he picks, the other one will go home at the next tribal council. Then we cut to Mike, and Mike has completely telegraphed exactly what OMAR's thinking. Mike tells us that he knows that after OMAR has made this big move, he's going to want to continue to X out these big targets, and he knows that OMAR is going to come after him in this next vote, and he is 100% right. You know, this would usually be seen as being paranoid, but he's paranoid and right in this case. And so he tries to get a few people on board to go after OMAR, specifically Marianne, because he already knows that he has Jonathan as his ally. And so if he can convince Marianne, and obviously he doesn't know yet, but Marianne knows that she has the extra vote. Marianne's 2 votes plus Jonathan plus Mike is a 4-3 majority at the next tribal council, and so that's all that they need. And so it really is up to Marianne at this point. So Mike goes to her, doesn't try to play too hard, but does tell her that it makes sense and that OMAR's a big threat, and she doesn't necessarily shoot it down, but she also doesn't necessarily hop on it just yet, and she says that she wants to think on it a little bit more. The next morning, Romeo, Lindsay, Marianne, and OMAR are sitting around the campfire. Jonathan and Mike are not in the scene, and so we see Marianne tell OMAR that Mike is paranoid and that Mike is trying to gun after him. And OMAR isn't really shocked about this. He is surprised, but not necessarily super shocked about this. And they all agree that Jonathan cannot win immunity since Mike has his idol. So Mike is already safe at this tribal if he plays it. And so Jonathan needs it to be an option to go home at this point. That needs to happen. And so Jonathan cannot win immunity at the immunity challenge that's coming up. At the reward challenge, OMAR wins and takes everyone with him except for Jonathan and Lindsay. And then after this, we see Jonathan and Lindsay have like a very tense conversation over the campfire and while they're eating rice. And it's very obvious that both of them are lying to each other and that they're both trying to gun for at least each other, or if not each other's allies. Like Lindsay's going for Jonathan. I don't think Jonathan's necessarily going for Lindsay. He's going for more of like an OMAR vote. And so it's definitely obvious that they're both lying, or at least to Jonathan it is, because he tells us that was a very intense conversation of 2 people trying to trick the other. We then see Lindsay win immunity at the immunity challenge, which is worst case scenario for Jonathan and Mike's side of things, because now that Lindsay has one immunity, she can give her idol, which she has to play at this upcoming tribal. It's the last time that she can play it. She can give that to her main ally in OMAR, and then they're both safe, making the only other possible target Romeo. We then see Lindsay, Romeo, OMAR, and Marianne get together, and according to Lindsay, it should be an obvious choice. It needs to be Jonathan, and at least to each other, they all agree that they're going to vote Jonathan. To Lindsay, it seems like an obvious choice. She's wanted Jonathan out since a very, very long time, and so for her, this is a move that she wants to make very, very bad. We then see OMAR go to Mike and tell him that all of the votes are going on Jonathan, which is the truth, actually. But Mike obviously does not believe that, and Mike is not going to be following that plan. And OMAR thinks this is perfect. Now I have Jonathan going after Mike, Mike going after Jonathan, and so if Jonathan, somehow either gets an idol played for himself, then Mike will go home, and if he doesn't, then he will go home. And so to OMAR, it's a perfect case scenario, and he feels very, very comfortable at this point. So now that Omar is super confident about this move as well as Lindsay, they meet back up and they're like, okay, great. So now that the plan's good, should you play your idol on me? Your idol being, of course, Lindsay's amulet, because it expires this round. So there's no reason really not to play it. But they say that maybe they shouldn't for two main reasons. One of them was shown on the episode, and one I figured out through post-game press. So one, the reason that was shown on the episode is that maybe it'll get re-hidden, or that idol may go back into circulation, and at the final 5 the target will find the idol. And the one that wasn't aired is that maybe it'll put a target on their back as far as being really close allies, because apparently the advantage was non-transferable. So Lindsay would have had to have played it for Omar, really putting a target on their relationship overall. We then see Marianne tell us that, of course, Lindsay and Omar want her to play her extra vote, to serve their plan, to get out Jonathan or Mike. But she has a different idea. She goes to Mike, and they basically debate over whether or not to target Omar and put like a little split vote on Omar and Romeo, or to just put all of the votes on Romeo, which is a safe play, since if they all go on Romeo, it's 4 votes between Mike, Jonathan, and Marianne's 2 votes, including her extra vote. So it's a guaranteed, because no one is playing an idol for Romeo. So that's more of the guaranteed plan. But of course, when you get out Romeo, 1, you lose that number in Romeo who you think that you're going to have next time. And then 2, you also lose a future GOAT at final tribal, which is always big, and you need goats at the end with you. So it's overall a better move to try and blindside Omar, but it's definitely more risky, especially for someone like Mike, whose name is actually going to be on the line if Omar get an idol played on him. This debate kind of gets drawn out, and eventually Jonathan kind of gets roped in as well, because obviously he's also part of this looming blindside plan against Omar and or Romeo, depending on who gets their way. And it's really framed in a great way for Marianne. Her edit is looking fantastic. The producers are really trying to make her look like this lamb to lion story, very, very, very similar to Erica's story. She tells us that it's so hard to get people that are bigger than her, specifically men like Mike and Jonathan, to listen to her plan instead of going for their safer plan. But then again, from Mike's perspective, if Omar gets an idol played on him with Marianne's plan, then it's his name on the line. So it makes sense why he does not want to do Marianne's version of the plan. Obviously, Marianne is being very generous with Mike's game and risking that, but obviously she'd be a lot more cautious if it was her game on the line. At Tribal, Marianne gets her way as the votes come in, with Lindsay and Omar voting for Jonathan, as well as 2 votes on Romeo, just to guarantee that there would be at least a revote if an idol was played for Omar, and the other 3 votes went on Omar, making Marianne's plan very successful and end up working out for the better, even though Mike was worried about it originally. I don't know. To me, it seemed like a pretty obvious Marianne win. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. As always, none of this happens without you guys. Without you guys, I'm sure you guys being a weird microphone. So as always, thank you. And if that's it, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.